At 9:07 in the morning, my boss texted asking for a quick meeting. By 9:09, my work account was locked, as if someone had switched off my life. At 9:10, my mother texted me saying that now I was free. I should come watch my 3 nephews because family comes first. That was the moment I realized she did not need me to love this family. She needed me trapped in it. My name is Avery Caldwell, and until exactly 9:07 this morning, I was a 31-year-old rising star at Bright Pine Solutions in Charlotte, North Carolina. I lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like expensive coffee and silence. I paid my own bills. I had just secured the lead on the Orion project, a massive cloud migration strategy that was going to put my name on the map in the tri-state area. I had built a fortress of solitude and success 2 hours away from the chaotic, suffocating gravity of my family. I thought I was safe. I thought distance was the same thing as protection. I was wrong. The morning had started with the deceptive calm of a guillotine blade hanging perfectly still before the drop. The air conditioning in the open-plan office hummed its usual white noise. I was reviewing the quarterly projections, feeling that specific, crisp satisfaction of numbers aligning perfectly. My phone sat face up on the desk, silent. Then it buzzed. It was a message from Marcus, my direct supervisor. The text was short, devoid of emojis, devoid of the usual casual banter we had developed over 3 years of working in the trenches together. Avery, can you come to conference room B for 5 minutes? My stomach did a small, involuntary flip. Corporate survival instinct is a real thing, evolved over years of navigating office politics. Conference room B was never good. Conference room B was where they held the exit interviews because it was closest to the elevators. It was the room with the frosted glass that did not quite go all the way to the ceiling. So you could hear the muffled sounds of careers dying if you stood close enough. I stood up. I smoothed the front of my navy blazer. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was about the Orion project. Maybe they wanted to discuss the budget expansion I had requested last Friday. I walked down the hallway, the carpet dampening the sound of my heels. I passed the break room where the coffee machine was gurgling. I passed the IT department where the guys were laughing about a server patch. Everything was normal. The world was spinning on its axis. I opened the door to conference room B. Marcus was there. He was sitting at the far end of the long mahogany table, his hands clasped in front of him. He did not look up when I entered. He was staring at a folder on the table as if it contained a bomb. Next to him sat Linda from Human Resources. I had only spoken to Linda twice in 3 years, once during orientation, and once when I needed to update my dental insurance. Linda had a face that was professionally neutral, the kind of face that could deliver a termination notice or a birthday card with the exact same expression. "Close the door, please, Avery," Linda said. Her voice was soft, but it had the finality of a prison gate slamming shut. I closed it. The click of the latch sounded like a gunshot in the small room. "Is everything okay?" I asked. I moved to pull out a chair, but Marcus finally looked up. His eyes were cold, not angry, just cold. It was a look of disappointment so profound it felt physically heavy. "Sit down, Avery," Marcus said. I sat. The leather chair creaked. "What is going on? Is this about the Orion budget? Because I can explain the allocation for the—" "This is not about the budget," Linda interrupted. She opened the folder. There was a single sheet of paper inside, typed with aggressive, blocky formatting. "We received a call this morning, an urgent call via the executive line, redirected to my department." I frowned. "A call from who?" "From your mother," Linda said. The air left the room. It vanished. My lungs pumped, but they found nothing to inhale. "My mother," I repeated. The words felt clumsy in my mouth. "Why would my mother call here? Is she okay? Is there an emergency?" "She was not calling to report a medical emergency, Avery," Linda said, her eyes dropping to the paper. "She was calling to report a whistleblower complaint against you." I blinked. The world tilted sideways. "Excuse me?" "She claims," Marcus said, his voice tight, that you have been utilizing company resources for a personal consulting business. She claims you have been billing Bright Pine for hours you were not working. She provided specific dates where she claims you were indisposed due to personal issues and substance misuse, yet you logged a full 8-hour days. That is a lie, I said. My voice was rising, sharp and jagged. That is a complete fabrication. I do not have a side business. I do not have substance issues. You know me, Marcus. You see my output. I am here until 7 in the evening most nights. She was very specific. Avery, Linda said. She tapped the paper. She mentioned the dates of the 14th and the 15th of last month. She said you were at her home, dealing with a family crisis, and that you bragged about having a, quote, mouse jiggler, unquote, to keep your team status active while you slept off a hangover. I felt the blood drain from my face, pooling somewhere in my feet. The 14th and 15th, I was at her home those days. It was the weekend I went back to help Tessa, my sister, move her old couch. I brought my laptop. I had worked from their kitchen table while my 3 nephews screamed in the living room. I had answered emails. I had not slept off a hangover. I had barely slept at all because my mother had kept me up until 2 in the morning lecturing me about why I was 31 and unmarried. I was working remotely, I said, gripping the edge of the table. I had approval. Marcus, you approved that remote block. I was answering your emails in real time. We have to investigate, Marcus said. He looked away again, staring at the window. The allegations regarding moral character and time theft are serious. Avery, especially with the new compliance protocols for the Orion project, we cannot have a leader who is compromised. I am not compromised. I stood up. This is insane. My mother, she is difficult. She does not understand how corporate work functions. She is trying to stir up drama because I did not come home for dinner last Sunday. You cannot possibly take this seriously. Linda looked up at me, her expression unyielding. She offered to send us photos, Avery, and she consented to a recording of the call. We have her statement on file. In it, she states that she is, quote, heartbroken to have to do this, but she cannot watch her daughter steal from a good company and lose her soul, unquote. Heartbroken. I could hear the word in Diane Caldwell's voice. I could hear the trembling, martyr-like vibrato she used when she wanted to destroy someone while looking like a saint. It is a personal attack, I pleaded, looking from Linda to Marcus. Please, you have to understand. This is what she does when she loses control. It has nothing to do with my work. We have a zero-tolerance policy regarding ethics complaints until they are fully adjudicated, Linda said. She reached for a phone on the table. Effective immediately. You are placed on administrative suspension pending a full forensic audit of your logs and communication history. Suspension. I felt like I had been punched in the throat. We need your badge, Marcus said. He still would not look me in the eye. And your company phone. I use my personal phone for 2-factor authentication, I stammered. It has already remotely wiped the corporate partition from your personal device, Linda said calmly, and your access to the building is revoked. I looked down at the phone in my hand. I tapped the screen. The Bright Pine email icon was grayed out. The Slack app, usually buzzing with notifications from the engineering team, was gone. It had simply vanished from the home screen. My calendar, my entire life, scheduled down to the 15-minute block, was blank. It was 9:09 in the morning, 2 minutes. It had taken 2 minutes for them to erase 3 years of blood, sweat, and perfect performance reviews. This is a mistake, I said, my voice shaking. I hated that I was shaking. I wanted to be furious. I wanted to flip the table, but my body was betraying me with pure, adrenaline-fueled terror. You are letting a vindictive woman dictate your staffing. We are following protocol, Linda said. She stood up and opened the door. Security is waiting at your desk to help you collect your personal effects. You have 10 minutes. The walk back to my desk was a blur. I could feel the eyes of my coworkers. They did not know what was happening, but they knew the scent of blood. In an open-plan office, privacy is a myth. They saw the security guard standing by my cubicle. They saw Marcus refusing to walk with me. I threw my things into my tote bag, a framed photo of a sunset I took in Bali, my spare cardigan, a bottle of lotion, the physical debris of a career, the security guard, a man named Earl who I used to joke with about the vending machine coffee. Looked at the floor. "Sorry, Ms. Caldwell," he mumbled. "It is fine, Earl," I whispered. "It is not your fault." I walked out of the double-glass doors of Bright Pine Solutions at 9:15. The morning sun was blinding. The heat of the North Carolina asphalt hit me instantly. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching my bag, feeling untethered. I pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I dialed my mother. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it went to voicemail. "Hi, you have reached Diane. Have a blessed day." "Pick up," I hissed at the phone. I dialed again. Voicemail. I dialed Tessa. Maybe Tessa knew. Maybe Tessa could stop this insanity. "Hello?" Tessa's voice sounded harassed. I could hear cartoons blaring in the background and the sound of something shattering. "Tessa," I choked out. "Did Mom call my boss? Did she call Bright Pine?" "What?" Tessa sounded distracted. "Avery, look, I can't talk right now. Braden just broke a vase and Mom is… Look, I just can't." "Tessa, listen to me," I shouted. A passerby looked at me, alarmed, but I didn't care. "I just got suspended. Security just escorted me out. Mom called them. She told them I was stealing time. She told them I was on drugs." There was silence on the other end of the line, a long, guilty silence. She said she was going to make a call," Tessa said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But I didn't think she'd actually… You knew." I felt the ground dissolve. "You knew she was going to do this." "She was just really stressed. Avery, the boys have been out of school for 3 days with the flu, and Mike is on double shifts, and Mom said you were just being selfish with your big fancy job and that you needed a reality check. She said you needed to remember where you came from." "A reality check," I screamed. "She accused me of fraud." "Tessa, this isn't a reality check. This is a felony. This is slander." "Stop yelling at me," Tessa snapped. "You think you're the only one with problems? I have 3 sick kids and no help. Maybe if you visited more than once a month, she wouldn't feel like she had to do drastic things to get your attention." "Just drastic things." "I have to go," Tessa said. "The baby is crying." She hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone, my breath coming in short, jagged gasps. I felt like I was drowning on dry land. Then, a notification slides down from the top of my screen. It was a text from my mother. "Now you have some free time. Come over and watch the 3 boys. Tessa needs a break and I have Bible study. Family comes first." Below the text, she had attached a location pin. It was Tessa's house. I stared at the screen until the pixels seemed to burn into my retinas. She did not deny it. She did not pretend. She did not even ask if I was okay. It was a transaction, a brutal, calculated exchange. She had identified the one thing that gave me independence, my career, and she had severed it with the precision of a surgeon. Just to create a vacancy in my schedule. She did not care that I might lose my health insurance. She did not care that the foreclosure of my reputation in the industry could be permanent. She did not care that I had worked 60-hour weeks for 5 years to get to this point. She saw me as a resource that had become unavailable, and thus needed to be forcefully reallocated. The audacity of it was so vast it was almost admirable. I looked back up at the Bright Pine building. I could see the window of Conference Room B on the 3rd floor. I imagined Marcus and Linda in there, listening to the recording of my mother's voice. That sweet, concerned, poisonous voice. Family comes first. I read the text again. A normal daughter would cry. A normal daughter would drive to Tessa's house and beg for forgiveness, would plead with her mother to call the boss back and say it was a mistake. A normal daughter would try to bargain with the terrorists. But as I stood there in the heat, watching the traffic on Tryon Street, something inside me snapped. It was not a loud snap. It was the quiet, metallic sound of a lock clicking into place. I was not going to cry. I was not going to Tessa's house. I was not going to babysit. If my mother wanted to play a game of forensic auditing, if she wanted to introduce the concept of evidence and legal standing into our relationship, then I would oblige her. She had treated my career like a crime scene. Fine, I would treat her actions like one. I opened my phone again. I did not reply to the text. Instead, I opened my Notes app. I created a new folder. I named it Case Number 1. Then I typed the first entry, 9:10 a.m., Monday. Admission of motive via text message. I was not an employee of Bright Pine Solutions anymore. Not for today. Today, I was an investigator, and I was going to find every single fingerprint she had left on the corpse of my career. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. I put the key in the ignition, but I didn't start the engine. I just sat there, breathing in the scent of the hot leather, letting the cold, hard anger settle into my bones where the panic used to be. They wanted a war. They had one. I sat in my car in the parking lot of Bright Pine Solutions, the engine still cold, and I let my mind drift backward. To understand why my mother would nuclearize my career on a random Monday morning, you have to understand the architecture of the Caldwell family. You have to understand that in my mother's eyes, I was not a person. I was a load-bearing wall, and you do not ask a wall if it is tired. You do not ask a wall if it has other plans. You just expect it to hold up the roof, and if it cracks, you blame the wall for being weak. For 31 years, I had been a good daughter, the easy one, the one who did not talk back, the one who made the dean's list, the one who absorbed the ambient anxiety of the household so everyone else could remain calm. I was raised on a steady diet of guilt and obligation. I was taught that no was a dirty word, a synonym for selfishness. If you had the capacity to give, you were morally obligated to give until you were empty. Then there was Tessa. My sister Tessa is 3 years older than me, and her life is a chaotic, swirling hurricane of needs that never seem to be met. She married Mike when she was 22. Mike is a decent man, I suppose, but he works rotating shifts at the distribution center and comes home looking like a hollowed-out shell. They have 3 boys. Braden is 10, Liam is 8, and Connor is 6. I love my nephews. I really do. But 3 boys under the age of 10 are not human beings. They are kinetic energy weapons wrapped in sticky skin. For the last 5 years, ever since I graduated and started making real money, I became the unspoken backup plan. It started small. A Saturday afternoon here so Tessa could get a haircut. A Sunday morning there so Mike could sleep off a graveyard shift. I would drive 45 minutes from my apartment in the city to their cluttered suburban split level, armed with patience I did not feel. But the small favors metastasized. It happens every other weekend. Then it became emergency pickups from school because Braden threw up and Tessa was working her part-time shift at the bakery. Then it became paying for Connor's speech therapy copays because Mike's insurance had a high deductible. I became the wallet and the nanny. I was the aunt who showed up with groceries because I saw the empty fridge. I was the aunt who paid for the summer camp deposit because things were tight this month. I never asked to be reimbursed. I never asked for gas money. I told myself this was what families did. We helped. But my mother, Diane, saw it differently. She did not see my help as a gift. She saw it as a duty. "We do not hire strangers," she would say, her voice tight with judgment whenever I suggested Tessa get a babysitter or a mother's helper. "Strangers do not love like blood. You cannot trust people who do not share your last name. Avery, why would we pay a stranger $15 an hour when you are right there?" Right there. I was not right there. I was 45 minutes away. I was working 50, sometimes 60 hours a week trying to claw my way up the corporate ladder. But to Diane, my job was just a cute little hobby I did in between my real purpose, which was serving the family unit. The shift happened 6 months ago. That was when I got the initial tap for the Orion project. The workload doubled overnight. I was managing a team of 12 developers, coordinating with stakeholders in London and Singapore. My calendar became a jigsaw puzzle of meetings and deadlines. I could no longer afford to be the on-call crisis manager for Tessa's household. I remember the day I tried to set the boundary. It was a Sunday dinner at my mother's house, pot roast and tension. The boys were screaming in the living room, throwing cushions at the cat. Tessa looked like she had not slept in a decade, picking at her potatoes. I took a deep breath. I had rehearsed this. I had literally written talking points in my journal. "Mom, Tessa," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to talk to you about my schedule. I got a major promotion at work. It is going to require a lot more focus. I am not going to be available for last-minute babysitting anymore. If you need me to watch the boys, I need at least a week of notice, and I cannot do weekends when I have deployment deadlines." The silence that followed was absolute. The only sound was the clinking of Mike's fork against his plate. He kept his head down. Smart man. My mother set down her glass of iced tea. The ice cubes rattled. She looked at me with a mixture of confusion and pity, as if I had just announced I was joining a cult. "A notice," she repeated, testing the word like it was sour milk. "You need a notice to see your own family." "Since when did you become so formal?" "Avery." "It is not about being formal, Mom," I said. "It is about my job. I have responsibilities. I cannot just leave a meeting because Liam forgot his gym bag." "You are changing," my mother said, shaking her head. She looked at Tessa. "Do you hear this? Your sister is too busy for us now. She has moved uptown and forgotten where she came from." "I have not forgotten anything," I argued. "I'm just saying I need a schedule. I am happy to help when I can, but I cannot be the default option anymore. Tessa needs to find a backup sitter. I can even help pay for it." That was the wrong thing to say. My mother's face hardened. "Money," she scoffed. "You think throwing money at us fixes everything? That is the problem with you lately. Avery, the money has made you hard. It has made you selfish. You think because you wear a suit and sit in an office that you are better than your sister, better than Mike. I never said that. Tessa is drowning." My mother raised her voice, pointing a manicured finger at my sister, who shrank into her chair. "Look at her. She is raising 3 boys on a shoestring budget while you go on vacations to Bali and buy expensive coffee. And you have the audacity to sit here and talk about schedules. Family is not a business transaction. Avery, family is sacrifice." "I have sacrificed," I snapped, my control slipping. "I have given up almost every weekend for 3 years. I have spent thousands of dollars on groceries and clothes for the boys. I am not asking for a medal. I am asking for respect for my time." "You owe this family," my mother said, her voice dropping to that lethal, quiet register. "I raised you to be a caretaker. I raised you to be a sister. If you turn your back on Tessa now, you are turning your back on me, on everything I taught you." The conversation ended with me leaving early, my stomach in knots. I thought I had made my point. I thought, despite the drama, they would understand that the well had run dry. I was naive. They did not hear, "I need boundaries." They heard, "I am defecting." In the weeks that followed, the punishment began. It was subtle at first, the guilt trips, the passive-aggressive text messages. "Tessa looks so tired today. Shame she has nobody to help her this afternoon." The boys asked why Auntie Avery hates them. I did not know what to tell them. It must be nice to have so much free time to go to brunch while your sister is scrubbing floors. They weaponized their struggles. Every time I said no, they made sure I felt the weight of it. If I refused to pick up the kids, Mom would text me later saying Tessa had a migraine and crashed the car a minor fender bender. But the implication was clear. This is your fault. If you had helped, this would not have happened. I started dreading my phone. Every ring felt like an accusation, but I held firm. I had to. The Orion Project demanded everything I had. I was working 14-hour days. I was exhausted. 2 days ago, last Saturday, was the breaking point. I was deep in a code review, sitting in my home office, wearing noise-canceling headphones. My phone lit up. It was Mom. I ignored it. It rang again. Then Tessa called. Then Mom again. Finally, I picked up, heart hammering. "Is everyone okay?" "We need you." Mom said, no hello, no preamble. Mike got called in for overtime and Tessa has a stomach bug. She cannot get off the bathroom floor. You need to come take the boys. Now. I looked at the clock. It was 2 p.m. I had a deliverable due to the London team by 6. Mom, I can't, I said. I am working. I have a deadline today. Is Mike's mom available? What about the neighbor? Mrs. Gable. I am not asking Mrs. Gable, Mom hissed. I am asking you. Family comes first. Avery, put the computer away and get in the car. I cannot put the computer away, I shouted, surprising myself. I will get fired if I miss this deadline. I cannot come. You have to find someone else. There was a pause on the line, a cold, heavy silence that felt like the drop in barometric pressure before a tornado. You will get fired, Mom asked softly. Is that what you are worried about? Your precious job? Yes, Mom. My job pays my rent. It pays for my life. You are choosing a company over your own flesh and blood, she said. You are choosing strangers over your nephews. I am choosing to keep my employment, I said, my hand shaking as I gripped the phone. I am sorry, Mom, I really am, but the answer is no. I cannot come today. You are not sorry, she said. Her voice was unrecognizable. It wasn't the voice of my mother anymore. It was the voice of a general looking at a soldier who had deserted his post. You have become a cold, ungrateful woman. I don't know who you are anymore. I have to go, Mom, I said, tears stinging my eyes. I have to work. Fine, she said. Work. If that job is the only thing that matters to you, then enjoy it while you can. What does that mean? I asked. It means, she said, her voice icy, that if you are too busy to be a daughter, I will have to fix your priorities for you. I will handle it my way. She hung up. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the wall, the silence of the apartment ringing in my ears. I will handle it my way. I told myself she was just venting. I told myself it was an empty threat, the lashings of a woman who was used to control and was panicking because she was losing it. I went back to work. I met my deadline. I ordered Thai food and watched a documentary, trying to push the conversation out of my mind. I thought the worst that would happen was the silent treatment. I expected to be uninvited from Thanksgiving. I expected to be blocked on Facebook. I did not expect her to go nuclear. I did not expect her to wake up on a Monday morning, pick up the phone, and systematically dismantle my livelihood just to clear my schedule. I looked at my hands resting on the steering wheel of my car. They were steady now. The shaking had stopped. She thought she was teaching me a lesson. She thought that by stripping away my job, she would force me back into the fold, humble and available. She thought that without Bright Pine, I would default back to being the good daughter, grateful for the scraps of affection she threw my way. She miscalculated. She forgot that the very job she hated was the one that taught me how to document, how to analyze, and how to execute a strategy. She forgot that the coldness she accused me of was actually clarity. I was not the 22-year-old who cried because mommy was mad. I was a project lead who had just been sabotaged. I started the car engine. The air conditioning blasted cold air into my face. She wanted me to have free time. Fine, I would use that free time, but I wasn't going to spend it watching cartoons with Braden, Liam, and Connor. I was going to spend it building a case file that would make the Inquisition look like a casual inquiry. I put the car in reverse and backed out of the parking spot. I wasn't going to Tessa's house. I was going to war. But first, I needed my own records. I needed to prove that family comes first was just a slogan for a hostage situation. I pulled my car into the back corner of a Starbucks parking lot 3 blocks from the Bright Pine office. My hands were still gripping the steering wheel with enough force to turn my knuckles white. I needed a base of operations. I needed Wi-Fi that was not connected to my corporate network, and I needed caffeine to combat the adrenaline crash that I knew was coming. My first move was to call Bright Pine. I knew my access was cut, but I still had the direct line for human resources saved in my contacts. I dialed Linda. She picked up on the second ring. Human resources. This is Linda. Linda, it is Avery, I said. My voice was steady. I was channeling every ounce of professional composure I had left. Do not hang up. I am not calling to beg. I am calling for a clarification regarding the suspension protocol. There was a pause. Avery, you know I cannot discuss the details of an active investigation. I am not asking for details of the investigation. I lied. I am asking for confirmation of the source material so I can prepare my defense. You stated there was a recording. I want to confirm that the number associated with that call matches the emergency contact number I have on file. Avery, if you are accusing me of fraud based on a third-party tip, I cut in, then the credibility of that source is the first thing my legal counsel will question. Is the number on the recording the one ending in 4492? Silence. I held my breath. That was my mother's cell number. Yes, Linda said finally. Her voice clipped. The caller ID matches the number listed in your personnel file for Diane Caldwell. That is why we treated it as a verified whistleblower complaint. It was not an anonymous tip. It was family. Thank you, Linda, I said. That is all I needed. I hung up before she could say anything else. Confirmation. It wasn't a spoof. It wasn't a prank. It was Diane. I opened my laptop. I had bought this MacBook for personal use 2 years ago, a purchase my mother had criticized as frivolous. Now, it was my lifeline. I connected to the coffee shop Wi-Fi and opened a fresh spreadsheet. I named the file Incident Timeline. I started logging everything. I treated my own life like a crime scene. 9:07 a.m. text from Marcus requesting meeting. 9:09 a.m. corporate network access revoked. 9:10 a.m. text from mom regarding babysitting. 9:15 a.m. escorted from building. The synchronicity was terrifying. For my mother to text me exactly 1 minute after my account was locked meant she wasn't just guessing. She knew. She had likely stayed on the line with the executive assistant or Linda until she heard confirmation that action was being taken, and then she immediately pivoted to the babysitting phase of her plan. I picked up my phone and texted Tessa. I needed to see how deep the conspiracy went. Me mom just got me suspended. She called my boss and told them I was stealing from the company. Did you know she was going to do this? The 3 dots of a typing indicator appeared instantly. Then they disappeared. Then it appeared again. She was hesitating. Tessa, mom is just really worried about you. Ave, she said you sounded manic on the phone Saturday. She thinks you are burned out and hiding it. She just wants you to come home so we can help you. I stared at the screen. The gaslighting was breathtaking, manic. She was painting a picture of a mental health crisis to justify sabotage. Me. She accused me of fraud. Tessa, this isn't helping. This is destroying my career. Did you tell her to do it, Tessa? I told her I was drowning with the boys and that you wouldn't help. I didn't tell her to call your boss. But maybe it is a blessing in disguise. You have been working too hard. Just come over. The boys miss you. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. A blessing in disguise. That was the family motto for, we ruined something you love, so you should thank us for saving you from it. I needed a sanity check. I dialed Sarah, a former colleague who had left Bright Pine a year ago to work in corporate law. Avery, Sarah answered. I saw your status go gray on LinkedIn. What happened? My mother happened, I said. I gave her a 60-second summary. Jesus, Sarah breathed. Okay, listen to me. Do not talk to them emotionally. You are in a legal precarious zone. If Bright Pine thinks you are unstable, they will fire you just to avoid liability. You need to create a paper trail immediately. I started a timeline, I said. Good. Now, write a formal email to Linda and the general counsel at Bright Pine. Do not use your personal Gmail if it looks unprofessional. Send it from a secure address. State clearly that you are the victim of familial harassment and tortious interference. Explicitly state that the whistleblower has a conflict of interest and is using the company's disciplinary process as a weapon in a domestic dispute. Use those words. Tortious interference. It scares HR people. Got it. And Avery, Sarah added, check your security. If she knew enough to make the complaint sound credible, she might have seen something. Did she have access to your calendar? My blood ran cold. I don't think so, I said. But she has been to my apartment. She has seen my setup. I hung up and immediately opened a new tab. I went to my personal email security settings. I navigated to the recent activity log. My heart hammered against my ribs. There it was, last Thursday, 1:45 p.m. Successful login. Location Pine Creek suburbs. Device iPad. Pine Creek, that was my mother's neighborhood, and she used an iPad for everything. I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Last Thursday, I had been at work. But how did she get the password? Then it hit me. A memory from 5 years ago. Right after I moved out. I was setting up my new life, and my mother had insisted I write down my emergency contacts and important information in a blue floral notebook she kept in her kitchen drawer. Just in case something happens to you. Avery, she had said, her voice dripping with maternal concern, I need to be able to access your accounts to close them if you die. I had written down my email password. It was an old password, one I thought I had changed, but I realized with a sinking sensation that I had reused a variation of it recently because I kept forgetting the new ones. She hadn't just called my boss. She had logged into my email. She had likely read my correspondence with Marcus about the remote work dates. She had seen the complaints about stress I sent to Sarah. She had taken my own private frustrations and weaponized them into a mental health crisis. This was not just overbearing parenting. This was espionage. I felt a cold resolve settle over me. The sadness was gone. The shock was evaporating. What was left was the sharp, jagged edge of betrayal. I typed the email to HR that Sarah had suggested. I attached the screenshot of the login from my mother's location. I hit send. Then I started the car. I drove out of the city, watching the skyline fade in my rearview mirror. The drive to my mother's house usually took 45 minutes. Today, I made it in 30. I pulled into the driveway. The house looked exactly the same as it always did. The manicured lawn, the white hydrangeas by the porch, the wreath on the door that changed with the seasons. It looked like the sanctuary she always claimed it was. I got out of the car. I did not bring my bag. I only brought my phone. Recording app open and running in my pocket. I unlocked the front door. I still had a key and walked in. The smell hit me first. Vanilla candles and pot roast. The smell of my childhood. Tessa, is that you? My mother's voice floated from the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen. She was standing at the island, chopping carrots. She was wearing her favorite apron. She looked calm, serene, even. She looked up, and for a split second, there was a flash of triumph in her eyes before she masked it with concern. Avery, she said. She put the knife down. You are here early. I thought you would go to Tessa's first. I know what you did, I said. I did not shout. I stood on the other side of the island, keeping the granite barrier between us. I don't know what you are talking about, she said, turning back to the carrots, but her hands were moving too fast. I spoke to HR. Mom, they confirmed the call came from your number, and I checked my email logs. I saw the login from your iPad last Thursday. She stopped chopping. She stood very still. You invaded my privacy, I said. You stole my personal information, and you used it to lie to my employer to get me suspended. That is a crime. Do you understand that is actual legal harassment? She turned around slowly. The mask of the sweet old lady slipped, revealing the steel beneath. It was necessary, she said. Necessary, I choked out a laugh. To ruin my life. To save you, she corrected. Her voice was hard. Look at you, Avery. You are thin. You are pale. You are obsessed with that company. You missed Sunday dinner 3 weeks in a row. You wouldn't help your sister when she was desperate. You are losing your way. So you decided to get me fired. I decided to remove the distraction, she said. She wiped her hands on her apron. And look, it worked. You are here. You are not staring at a screen. You are standing in my kitchen. I am here to tell you that you might have destroyed my career, I said. I am suspended. They confiscated my badge. I might never work in this industry again. Good, she said. The word hung in the air like smoke. Good. I whispered. Yes, good, she said, leaning forward against the counter. That job was making you arrogant. It was making you think you didn't need us. Now you see, Avery, the world is cold. Those people, that boss of yours. They dropped you the second there was trouble. Who is still here? Who is still standing in front of you, family? You created the trouble, I shouted. They didn't drop me because they are cold. They dropped me because you lied to them. Details. She waved her hand dismissively. The point is, now you have time. Tessa needs help with the boys this week. You can stay here until you get back on your feet. We will take care of you. We will fix you. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw a woman who was terrified of irrelevance, a woman who measured her worth by how much control she had over her children. She didn't want me to be successful. She wanted me to be needy. She wanted me to be broken so she could be the one to glue me back together. She had burned down my house just so she could offer me a blanket. I am not staying here, I said. My voice was shaking, not with fear, but with rage. I am not watching Tessa's kids, and I am not going to let you fix me. You have nowhere else to go, she said smugly. You have no income now. How will you pay that ridiculous rent? I have savings, I said, and I have a lawyer. Her eyes narrowed. You wouldn't? You called my boss. Mom. You crossed a line that doesn't get uncrossed. You didn't just hurt my feelings. You attacked my livelihood. That makes you a liability, not a mother. If you walk out that door, she warned, her voice rising, don't you expect me to be here when you fail? Don't you come crawling back when that city eats you alive? I won't, I said. I turned around. Avery, she screamed. Family comes first. You can't walk away from your family. I didn't stop. I walked out of the kitchen, down the hallway, and out the front door. I got back into my car. My hands were steady again. She thought she had checked me. She thought that by taking away my pawn, my job, she had won the game. She thought I would fold, collapse, and accept my role as the prodigal daughter returning to the service of the clan. She was wrong. She hadn't checkmated me. She had just freed me from the illusion that I owed her anything. I picked up my phone. I stopped the recording. 8 minutes of confession. I pulled up the contact for Bright Pines Legal Department. Then I pulled up Google and searched for civil litigation attorneys, Charlotte. I put the car in drive. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to court. I did not go back to my apartment to cry. I went back to my apartment to draft an incident report. For the last 3 years, my job at Bright Pine Solutions has consisted of managing crises. I was the person they called when a server migration failed at 2 a.m. I was the person who stood in front of angry stakeholders and explained exactly how we were going to fix a data breach. My entire professional identity was built on the ability to remain clinically detached while the building was burning down around me. My mother had started a fire. She expected me to curl up in the fetal position and let the smoke take me. Instead, I sat at my dining table, opened my personal laptop, and treated her actions as a hostile external security threat. I wrote an email. It was not addressed to Linda in HR as a plea for mercy. It was addressed to Linda, Marcus, the head of IT security, and the general counsel. The subject line was not, "My side of the story." It was formal notice, external security incident, and tortious interference with employment contract. I requested a video conference for 10 o'clock the next morning. I did not ask. I stated that I was available at that time to present exculpatory evidence regarding the whistleblower complaint that had triggered my suspension. I hit send, then I waited. At 8:45 the next morning, I received a calendar invite. They had accepted. I logged into the Zoom call at 9:59. I was wearing my best blazer. My background was a blurred, neutral wall. I had my exhibits prepared in a PDF file, ready to share on the screen. When the video feeds flickered on, the atmosphere was frigid. Marcus looked tired. Linda looked defensive. Her lips pressed into a thin line. There was a third window, a man named David from Information Security, someone I had worked with on firewall integration last year, and a fourth window, a black screen with just a name, Legal Compliance. "Ms. Caldwell," the voice from the black screen said. It was dry and devoid of warmth. "We are here at your request. However, be advised that this meeting is being recorded for legal purposes." "I would expect nothing less," I said. My voice was calm. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my voice was pure ice. "I am recording it as well, per North Carolina's one-party consent laws." I saw Marcus blink. He wasn't used to this Avery. He was used to Avery who apologized when someone else bumped into her. "I am not here to discuss my feelings," I began, looking directly into the camera lens. "I am here to present evidence that Bright Pine Solutions has been the victim of a social engineering attack orchestrated by a third party with malicious intent. This third party utilized personal knowledge gained through a familial relationship to manipulate company protocol, cause financial damage to my reputation, and disrupt business operations." "The caller identified herself as your mother," Linda interrupted. "We verified the number." "I am not disputing the identity of the caller," I said. "I am disputing the validity of her claims and exposing her motive. David, if I may," I shared my screen. The first slide was a simple timeline. On the left, the timestamp of the HR action. On the right, the timestamp of the text message from my mother, 9:09 a.m. corporate account access revoked, 9:10 a.m. text message received from Diane Caldwell. "Please look at the content of the text message," I said. I zoomed in on the screenshot. "Now you have some free time. Come over and watch the three boys. Family comes first." "The whistleblower complaint alleged substance abuse and time theft," I said. Yet, 1 minute after she successfully triggered my suspension, the whistleblower did not suggest I go to rehab. She did not express concern for my health. She demanded I provide unpaid childcare services. This text proves that the objective of the call to HR was not to report a crime, but to create a vacancy in my schedule. Silence. I watched Marcus lean closer to his screen. "That is odd timing," Marcus muttered. "It is not odd," I said. "It is calculated, but there is more. David, can you pull up the security logs for my remote access account from last Thursday?" David, the IT security officer, cleared his throat. "I have them here. Avery, do you see a failed password reset attempt?" David typed for a moment. "Yes, 14:30 hours on Thursday. Someone tried to trigger a password reset for your secondary verification email. It failed because they couldn't answer the second security question. And can you trace the IP address of that request?" I asked. "It resolves to a residential ISP in Pine Creek," David said. "Specifically, the node servicing the south side of the subdivision. That is my mother's neighborhood," I said. "Last Thursday, I was in the office. The badge logs will confirm I was at my desk. My mother attempted to access my personal accounts to fabricate evidence or gain leverage. When that failed, she resorted to the direct attack on Monday morning." I stopped sharing the screen. I let the faces of the people who held my career in their hands fill the monitor again. "This is not a personnel issue," I said, leaning back. "This is tortious interference. A third party intentionally damaged my contractual relationship with Bright Pine to serve her own private domestic agenda. If the company validates her lies by upholding this suspension without a forensic audit of my actual work output, you are essentially becoming an accessory to her harassment." It was a bold move. I was essentially threatening to sue them if they didn't side with me. The lawyer spoke up. "Ms. Caldwell, are you suggesting that the claims of time theft are entirely fabricated?" "I can account for every 15-minute block of my time for the last 6 months," I said. "My commit logs in GitHub are time-stamped. My Jira tickets are updated in real time." The dates she cited, the 14th and 15th, were weekend days where I had prior approval from Marcus to work remotely. I was not hungover. I was refactoring the code for the migration module. "Marcus, you merged that code yourself on Monday morning. You remarked on the efficiency of the script." Marcus rubbed his face with his hand. He looked like a man waking up from a long, confusing dream. "She's right," Marcus said quietly. "I remember that code merge. It was clean, and the timestamps were from Sunday night." He looked at Linda. "Linda, if Avery was working that weekend, then the time theft accusation is demonstrably false. And if the text message came in 1 minute after we locked her out, this looks like a hit job. We have a recording, Linda insisted, though her voice was wavering. The mother was very convincing. She cried. "My mother," I said, allowing a rare note of bitterness to seep into my voice, "could cry on command if it would get her a discount at the grocery store. Tears are not evidence, Linda. Data is evidence." The lawyer on the black screen spoke again. "Place Ms. Caldwell on paid administrative leave effective immediately. Revoke the suspension status. It implies guilt. We are moving this to an investigatory phase." I felt a knot in my chest loosen. Paid administrative leave. It wasn't a full reinstatement, but it was a shield. It meant I was still an employee. It meant my health insurance was active. "Thank you," I said, "but I have one condition. You are not really in a position to make demands," Linda snapped. "It is a request for the security of the company." I corrected her. "My mother has demonstrated that she is willing to lie to corporate officers to manipulate my schedule. She is a security risk. I want a flag put on my file. Any future communication from Diane Caldwell, or anyone claiming to be my family, must be routed directly to the legal department. No managers, no assistants, and definitely not HR are to speak to her. She does not get to bypass protocol again." "Agreed," the lawyer said instantly. "We will issue a cease and communication directive internally. If she calls, she gets transferred to us." "Wait," Linda said. She was looking at a file on her desk. She seemed to be hesitating. There is something else." "What?" I asked. "I didn't mention this yesterday because I didn't think it was relevant," Linda said, her face pale. "But since you are establishing a pattern of harassment, she didn't just call the whistleblower line." "Who else did she call?" I asked. My stomach tightened. "She called the main switchboard," Linda said. "She tried to get through to the CEO's executive assistant. When she couldn't, she left a voicemail on the general departmental line for the sales division." "The sales division," I repeated. "Why would she call sales?" "She left a message saying that if anyone was looking for Avery Caldwell, they should know she was unavailable due to a family crisis involving mental instability." Linda read from her notes. "She said she wanted to spare the company embarrassment in front of clients." The room went silent. That wasn't just trying to get me fired. That was scorching the earth. The sales division held the relationships with our biggest clients. If that rumor got out, if a client heard that the lead on the Orion project was mentally unstable, the contract could be pulled. Marcus looked horrified. "She tried to sabotage the client relationships." "She didn't care about the clients," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She doesn't even know what we do here. She just knew that if I lost the clients, I lost the project, and if I lost the project, I would have nothing left but her." It wasn't about babysitting. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The 3 nephews. The help she needed that was just the pretext, the cover story. This was about power. My mother had realized that as long as I had Bright Pine, as long as I had a reputation and a salary and a life that didn't revolve around her approval, I was out of her reach. She couldn't control me with guilt anymore, so she had decided to break my legs to keep me from walking away. She was willing to burn down a multi-million-dollar project just to make sure I was home for Sunday dinner. "That changes things," the lawyer said, his voice sharpening. "This is no longer just a domestic dispute. This is an attempt to damage the company's goodwill. Linda, flag the file. Marcus, draft a statement for the sales team in case any rumors circulate. Ms. Caldwell, we are going to need you to write a formal affidavit regarding her behavior." "I will write whatever you need," I said. "We will be in touch regarding your reinstatement timeline," the lawyer said. "For now, sit tight. Do not contact her. Let us handle the legal wall." The screen went black. The meeting ended. I sat in the silence of my apartment. I had won the battle. I had kept my job. Or at least, I had stopped the bleeding. But I did not feel like a winner. I picked up my phone. There were 3 missed calls from Tessa. 2 from my mother. I didn't call them back. Instead, I went to the window and looked out at the city. I used to think my mother was just old-fashioned. I used to think she just loved too hard. Now I know the truth. It wasn't love, it was ownership, and she was about to find out that I was not a piece of property she could foreclose on. I walked back to my computer. I had the timeline. I had the email logs. Now I need the financial records, because if she was willing to impersonate me to my boss, I had a sickening feeling she hadn't stopped at my employment file. I needed to see what else she had touched. I opened my banking portal. Case number 1 was just getting started. The war for my career had paused in the boardroom, but it had only just begun on the battlefield of public opinion. I spent the first day of my paid administrative leave in the silence of my apartment. Surrounded by the hum of my servers and the cold light of my monitors, I was legally protected. For now, Brightpine had flagged my file. The lawyers were building a wall, but my mother knew that laws were slow and gossip was fast. She knew that while I was waiting for affidavits and forensic audits, she could dismantle the one thing a lawyer could not easily fix: my reputation. It started with a notification on Facebook. I rarely use the platform anymore. It was a graveyard of high school reunions and political arguments, a place I kept active only to see photos of my nephews. But at 10:15 in the morning, my phone lit up with a tag. It was a post from Diane Caldwell. The background was a stock photo of a lonely, empty chair on a porch at sunset. The caption was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive prose, the kind that Southern women perfect over decades of church luncheons. It is a heavy burden for a mother's heart when she watches her children lose their way. We raise them to be kind, to value blood over gold, but the city has a way of hardening a soul. Please pray for my youngest daughter. She has chosen the cold comfort of a career over the warmth of the people who raised her. We are heartbroken, but the door is always open when she is ready to remember who she is. I stared at the screen. She did not name me, but she did not have to. Everyone in Pine Creek knew who her youngest daughter was. Everyone knew I was the one in the city. The comments were already rolling in. So sorry to hear this. Diane, praying for her heart to soften. Money is the root of all evil. Stay strong. Mama, kids these days just do not understand sacrifice. You did your best. It was a digital pillory. She was painting a narrative where I was the prodigal daughter, lost to greed, while she was the suffering saint waiting by the window. She left out the part where she called my boss. She left out the part where she tried to access my bank accounts. She left out the part where she weaponized the HR department of a tech firm to solve her childcare shortage. I wanted to comment. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to type, "She called my employer and accused me of drug abuse because I would not babysit on a Monday." But I stopped. Engaging was losing. If I argued, I looked defensive. If I attacked, I looked unstable, exactly what she had told Brightpine I was. Then the direct messages started. The first one was from Aunt Karen, my father's sister, Avery. "Honey, I saw your mom's post. I do not know what is going on, but maybe you should just call her, the boys are innocent in this. Don't punish them because you are mad at Diane. Be the bigger person." The phrase made my teeth ache. Be the bigger person. It was the mantra of dysfunctional families everywhere. It translated to, accept the abuse so the rest of us do not have to feel uncomfortable. I typed a reply. I did not send it to the family group chat. I sent it only to Karen. The boys are innocent. That is true. But innocence does not give the adults around them the right to destroy my livelihood. I am not punishing anyone. I am protecting myself from slander. If you want to help, tell Mom to stop lying to my boss. Karen did not reply. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from Instagram. Tessa, my sister, had posted a story. It was a video of her in her car, the sanctuary of every overwhelmed suburban mother. She was not crying, but she looked like she was about to. The filter she used softened the dark circles under her eyes, making her look fragile and angelic. "I just do not understand," she said to the camera, her voice breaking just enough to be sympathetic without being hysterical. "You grow up with someone, you share a room, you think you would do anything for each other, and then, when you really need them, when you are drowning, they just look at you and check their watch. Sisters are supposed to be built-in best friends, right? Guess I missed the memo. She ended the video with a heavy sigh and a shot of the 3 car seats in the back. The caption read, "Family over everything, even when it hurts." I felt a sharp, hot stab of betrayal in my chest. Tessa knew. Tessa knew exactly what Mom had done. Tessa knew I wasn't refusing to help because I was selfish. She knew I was refusing because I was working. But Tessa was drowning. And when people drown, they will climb on top of anyone to get a breath of air. Even their sister. She was feeding the beast. She was validating Mom's narrative because it was easier to be the victim of a cruel sister than it was to admit her mother was a sociopath who sabotaged careers. I put the phone down on the kitchen counter. I needed water. I felt like I was covered in a thin layer of grime. Around noon, I received a text from Mrs. Gable, the neighbor who lived next door to my parents. Mrs. Gable was one of the few people in Pine Creek who actually liked me, mostly because I used to fix her iPad whenever I visited. Avery. Dear, I am at the garden club. Your mother is telling people that you were let go from your job for drinking. She is saying she is trying to get you into a program, but you are resisting. I know that isn't true, but you need to know what is being said. I gripped the glass of water until I thought it might shatter. Drinking. She wasn't just vague booking anymore. She was planting specific seeds of destruction. If I ever applied for another job in Charlotte, and a background check involved calling character references in my hometown, this creates a cloud. Oh, Avery Caldwell. Talented girl, but I heard she has a problem with the bottle. It was a scorched earth policy. She was burning my reputation to the ground so that I would have no choice but to return to the ashes. Then, at 1 o'clock, the twist came. My phone chimed with a text message from Mom. I expected an apology, or a threat, or maybe a continuation of the family comes first rhetoric. Instead, I received an image file. It was a screenshot of a handwritten calendar. It was a grid for the rest of the week: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesday. Pick up boys at 3, soccer practice at 4:30, dinner at 6, Thursday. Tessa has a dentist. Watch Connor from 2 to 5, Friday. Boys off school, full day at the house. Mom has Bible study. Under the image, she wrote a single sentence. Since you are on leave now, here's the schedule. I told Tessa you would be there by 2 tomorrow. I stared at the phone, blinking. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. She had personally engineered my suspension. She had spread rumors that I was an alcoholic. She had publicly shamed me on Facebook. And now, she was treating my resulting unemployment as a logistical asset she had successfully acquired. She did not see me as a person who was hurt. She saw me as a Roomba that had finished charging and was ready to be deployed. I felt a cold laugh bubble up in my throat. It was the absurdity of it. It was the sheer, unadulterated entitlement. She truly believed that because she had broken my leg, I should thank her for giving me a reason to sit down. I sat at my computer. I did not text back. I drafted a formal response. I wanted it in writing, clear and unambiguous. To Diane Caldwell. From Avery Caldwell. I am in receipt of the schedule you sent. Let me be perfectly clear. My employment status is currently under legal review due to your interference. Being on administrative leave is not a vacation, and it is not an availability window for you to exploit. I will not be picking up the boys. I will not be taking them to soccer. I will not be watching them on Friday. I do not replace my professional career with unpaid labor for a family that attempts to destroy it. Do not expect me. Do not tell Tessa I am coming if you leave the children unattended assuming I will show up. That is your negligence, not my abandonment. I hit send. The response was immediate. She must have been holding the phone. You handle this like a lawyer. That is your problem. You have lost your heart. Go ahead and sue me. Avery, sue your own mother. See how that looks to the world. But remember this, Braden and Liam can read now. They will see Tessa crying. They will ask where Auntie Avery is, and we will have to tell them that you chose your pride over them. They will remember who abandoned them. I read the text twice. They will remember who abandoned them. She was holding the children hostage. She was putting a gun to their emotional heads and telling me that if I didn't surrender, she would pull the trigger and blame me for the bullet. It was a trap. If I went back, I validated her behavior. I taught her that she could bomb my life, and I would still crawl out of the rubble to serve her. If I stayed away, she would poison my relationship with my nephews, perhaps permanently. I looked at the photo of the boys I kept on my desk. Braden with his missing front tooth, Liam holding a frog, Connor with his sticky hands. I loved them, but I could not save them by drowning with them. I realized then that they were not just children to her. They were shields. She held them up so that every arrow I fired at her manipulation would have to pass through them first. I am not abandoning them. I whispered to the empty room. I am refusing to be held captive by you. I did not reply to the text regarding the kids. I would not negotiate with terrorists, even if they baked cookies. I went back to my spreadsheet. I added the Facebook post to the evidence folder. I added the text from Mrs. Gable. I added the screenshot of the babysitting schedule. I was building a fortress of facts. It was the only place I felt safe. The afternoon dragged on. The sun began to set over Charlotte, casting long shadows across my living room floor. I felt exhausted, drained by the silent, digital war I was fighting. Then, at 7:30 in the evening, my phone buzzed one more time. It was Tessa. I hesitated. I didn't want to see another video. I didn't want to read another guilt trip. But the preview message caught my eye. It wasn't a long paragraph. It was short, urgent. Tessa mom is in the car. She is driving to the city. She says the email wasn't enough. She is going to your office building to explain things to your boss in person. Avery, she is really mad. The blood drained from my face. She wasn't done. The phone call hadn't been enough. The voicemail hadn't been enough. The social media shaming hadn't been enough. She was going to show up. She was going to walk into the lobby of Bright Pine Solutions, where I was currently banned, and demand to speak to management. She was going to cause a scene. She was going to scream about how her daughter was being stolen by corporate America. It was the nuclear option. If she caused a physical disturbance, security would be called, police might be involved. And even if I was innocent, having my mother dragged out of my office building in handcuffs would be a stain no amount of hard work could scrub away. She wasn't coming to explain. She was coming to ensure that even if I won the investigation, I would be too embarrassed to ever walk through those doors again. I stood up. My chair fell backward with a crash. I had to stop her. But I couldn't go to the office. I was banned. I looked at the clock. 7:32. The drive was 45 minutes. She would be there by 8:15. The cleaning crews would be there. Maybe some late-night devs. I grabbed my keys. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't sit behind a screen anymore. The war had just moved from the digital world into the physical one, and the battlefield was the lobby of the company I had built my life around. The morning sun was filtering through the blinds of my apartment, casting long, dusty stripes across the hardwood floor. It was Tuesday. Normally, at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, I would be in the middle of a sprint planning meeting for the Orion project, drinking my third cup of coffee and debating server architecture. Instead, I was sitting on my beige sofa in sweatpants, watching a progress bar on my laptop as I downloaded 6 months of bank statements. I was technically on paid administrative leave, which in my mother's vocabulary translated to unemployed vacation time. To me, it was simply a tactical pause, a chance to reload. I had spent the night waiting for the fallout from Tessa's text, the one claiming Mom was driving to my office. I had called security at Bright Pine, warned them, and then waited. Nothing had happened. No police reports, no calls from Marcus. It seemed she had either bluffed or been turned away at the revolving doors before she could cause a scene. I thought I had dodged the bullet. I was wrong. The bullet just took a detour. At 11:30, the buzzer to my apartment rang. It was not the polite, short buzz of a delivery driver. It was a long, sustained, aggressive drone that sounded like someone was leaning their entire body weight against the button. I froze. My building had a secure lobby, but residents often buzzed people in without checking, or people tailgated through the front door. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my knees. It was an invasion force. My mother stood front and center, wearing her church confrontation outfit, a stiff floral blouse and pressed slacks. Behind her was Tessa, looking pale and staring at her feet, and swarming around their legs were Braden, Liam, and Connor. They had bags, diaper bags, backpacks, a duffel bag. This was not a visit. This was a deployment. The buzzer rang again, sharp and demanding. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. I did not open it wide. I stood in the frame, blocking the entrance with my body. "Grandma says push," 6-year-old Connor yelled, trying to squeeze past my leg. "Connor, wait," I said gently, putting a hand on his shoulder to stop him. I looked up at my mother. "What are you doing here?" "We are here to drop off the boys," my mother said. She did not say hello. She did not ask if I was busy. She spoke with the breezy confidence of someone who believes reality bends to her will. "Tessa has a dentist appointment at 11, and then she has to go to the pharmacy. Since you are sitting at home doing nothing, you are taking them." "I am not doing nothing," I said, my voice low. "I am working on my legal defense against the fraud accusations you made, and I sent you an email stating I am not available." "Oh, stop with the drama," my mother scoffed. She bent down and picked up a heavy bag filled with toys. She tried to shove it into my chest. "Take the bag. Avery, your sister is in pain. Look at her." I looked at Tessa. She did look terrible. Her face was swollen, her eyes red, but she also looked ashamed. She wouldn't meet my gaze. "Tessa," I said, "did you agree to this?" Tessa flinched. Mom said since you were suspended, it made sense. I really do have an appointment. I don't have anyone else." "You have a husband," I said. "You have a mother-in-law." "Mike is sleeping," Mom snapped. "He worked a double. We are not waking him up when you are sitting here in your pajamas. Now move. The boys are thirsty." She stepped forward, expecting me to yield. It was the dance we had done for 30 years. She pushed. I moved. She demanded. I provided. But today, the music stopped. I did not move, but I also looked down at my nephews. Liam was holding his favorite stuffed dinosaur, looking up at me with wide, confused eyes. Braden was kicking the doorframe, anxious energy radiating off him. It was 90 degrees in the hallway. They looked hot and tired. I could not slam the door in their faces. That is what she was banking on. She knew I wasn't cruel. She was weaponizing my decency. "Okay," I said. My mother smirked. It was a small, victorious twitch of her lips. Was that so hard?" "The boys can come in," I said, my voice cutting through her satisfaction like a razor. "They can come in for exactly 10 minutes to get a glass of water and use the bathroom. But you are not leaving them here, and you are not leaving." "We are already late," Mom said, trying to push past me again. "Come on, boys. Go find the TV." "Stop," I said. I didn't shout, but the command was sharp enough that even Connor froze. I stepped back to let the boys enter, guiding them toward the kitchen island. "Boys, go sit on the stools. Auntie Avery will get you juice. Do not turn on the TV. Do not unpack your bags." As the kids scrambled onto the high chairs, I turned back to the doorway. I did not invite Mom or Tessa inside. I stood between the kitchen and the entrance. "Tessa," I said, pulling my phone out of my pocket. "Call Mike." "He is sleeping," Tessa whispered. "Then wake him up," I said. "Because if you walk out that door without your children, I am calling the police." My mother laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "The police. You are going to call the police on your own sister for dropping off her kids. Do you know how insane you sound? Do you know how heartless that is?" "It is not heartless," I said. "It is a boundary. I told you I'm not babysitting. You are trying to force me by physically dumping them in my living room. That is abandonment." "It is family," Mom shouted. Her voice echoed in the hallway. "Family helps family. You ungrateful little brat. After everything we did for you, you have a 2-bedroom apartment and you can't watch your nephews for 3 hours." "I am calling Mike," I said. I ignored her shouting. I scrolled to Mike's contact. I put the phone on speaker so they could hear it ringing. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? Mike's voice was thick with sleep. Avery. Mike, I said clearly. I am at my apartment. Tessa and Diane are here. They are attempting to leave the boys with me against my will. I need you to come pick them up immediately. What? Mike sounded confused. Wait, Tessa said you agreed. She said you called and asked to see them. I looked at Tessa. She squeezed her eyes shut. She lied to you. Mike, I said. Or Mom lied to her. It doesn't matter. I am on administrative leave because of the legal situation Mom caused. I am not babysitting. The boys are safe. I am giving them water. But you need to be here in 30 minutes. If you are not here, I have to escalate this. Escalate like cops. Mike sounded awake now, panicked. I cannot be responsible for 3 children I did not agree to watch. Mike, if something happens to them, I am liable. Please come get your sons. Yeah, okay. I'm coming. Give me 40 minutes with traffic. Thank you, I said. I hung up. I looked at my mother. Her face had turned a mottled shade of red. You called him, she hissed. You woke him up. He worked all night. He is their father, I said. It is his responsibility, not mine. You are sick, Mom spat. You are mentally ill. That is what this is. The stress has finally snapped your brain. No sane woman calls her brother-in-law to come rescue kids from her own house. I am not the one screaming in a hallway, I said. My mother took a step back, her eyes scanning the hallway. She realized she was losing the private battle, so she decided to make it public. She raised her voice, pitching it to carry down the corridor. So you are kicking them out, she shouted. You are kicking 3 little boys out onto the street. Is that what you are doing? Avery, you are throwing your own flesh and blood out because you are too selfish to care. Down the hall, Mrs. Higgins' door opened. Mrs. Higgins was 60, retired, and the head of the condo board. She peered out. Her glasses perched on her nose. Is everything all right? Mrs. Higgins asked, looking from my mother to me. No, it is not, Mom yelled, turning to her. My daughter is refusing to help her sick sister. She is throwing her nephews out. Who does that? I felt a flush of heat rise up my neck. This was it. The public shaming. The social pressure. She expected me to crumble, to grab her arm and say, "Shh, okay, just come inside," to avoid the scene. I took a deep breath. I channeled the version of myself that handled crisis management meetings. I did not whisper. I spoke clearly, loud enough for Mrs. Higgins and the neighbor across the hall, a young guy named Greg who had just poked his head out, to hear. Mrs. Higgins, I said, this is a domestic dispute. My mother is attempting to abandon 3 minors at my residence without my consent. I have already contacted the children's father, and he is en route. I turned back to Mom. You can scream all you want, Mom, but the boys are staying in the kitchen with their juice until Mike gets here. You can wait with them, quietly, or you can wait in your car. But if you continue to scream, I will call the non-emergency line and file a report for disturbance of the peace. You wouldn't, Mom sneered. I lifted my phone. I dialed 311. I held the screen up so she could see the numbers. I am doing it right now, I said. I am creating a record, just like I created a record of your call to my boss. Every single thing you do to force me into submission is going into a file. Do you want the police to come and take a statement from Mrs. Higgins about who was screaming? I saw Greg, the neighbor, lift his phone. He was filming. My mother saw it too. She froze. She was a bully. But she was a bully who cared deeply about appearances. Being the victim on Facebook was one thing. Being recorded screaming like a banshee in an upscale apartment hallway was another. It didn't fit the saintly grandmother narrative. She clamped her mouth shut. Her hands balled into fists at her sides. Fine, she whispered. Fine. You want to be a stranger? Be a stranger. She turned to Tessa. Get inside. We will wait for Mike. They marched into my apartment. I didn't stop them. It was safer than the hallway. The next 30 minutes were the longest of my life. The boys sat at the island, swinging their legs, happily drinking apple juice and oblivious to the nuclear tension in the room. Tessa sat on the edge of the sofa, crying silently. My mother stood by the window, her back to me, staring out at the parking lot like a sentry. I stood in the kitchen, leaning against the refrigerator. I didn't offer them coffee. I didn't offer them snacks. I checked my email. I refreshed my bank feed. I existed in space, but I refused to host them. "I'm sorry," Tessa whispered at one point. "Don't," Mom snapped from the window. "Do not apologize to her. She is the one who should be on her knees." I ignored them both. I looked at Braden. "How is school, buddy?" "Good," Braden said, wiping his mouth. "We learned about volcanoes." "That is cool," I said. "Volcanoes are fascinating because they build up pressure for a long time before they explode." "Yeah," Braden grinned. "And then lava goes everywhere." "Exactly," I said. At 11:15, Mike buzzed the intercom. "It is Mike," I said. I pressed the unlock button. When Mike walked through the door, he looked exhausted. He was wearing his work uniform, grease stains on his knees. He looked from me to Tessa to Mom. "What is going on?" he asked. "Why are we doing this?" "Ask your sister-in-law," Mom said, turning around. Her face was composed now, the mask back in place. She decided she was too important to watch her nephews for 2 hours. She threatened to call the cops on us. "Mike, can you believe that?" Mike looked at me. He didn't look angry. He looked sad. "I didn't threaten to arrest them, Mike," I said calmly. "I told them I wouldn't accept a forced drop-off. I am dealing with the HR investigation Mom started. I cannot go to a daycare right now." Mike sighed. He rubbed his eyes. "Come on, boys. Let's go. Daddy's got you." "But Mommy said we were staying with Auntie Avery," Liam whined. "Plans changed, buddy," Mike said. He picked up the diaper bag. He looked at Tessa. "Are you coming? Or do I have to drive back to get you later?" "I'm coming," Tessa mumbled. She stood up. She looked at me one last time, a look of pure misery, and walked out the door. Mike herded the boys out. "Sorry, Avery," he muttered as he passed. "It is not your fault." "Mike," I said. My mother was the last one to leave. She walked slowly toward the door. She stopped right in front of me. She was shorter than me, but in that moment, she felt massive, radiating a cold, dark energy. She didn't yell. She didn't scream for the neighbors this time. She leaned in close, so close I could smell her hairspray and the peppermint she always chewed. "You think you won," she whispered. "You think because you kept the kids out. You are in control." "Goodbye, Mom," I said, reaching for the doorknob. "I have other numbers," she said softly. "I have that Rolodex you left in your old room, the one from your first year at the company." I felt a chill run down my spine. That Rolodex. It contained the business cards of my first contacts, but more importantly, she had access to the internet. She knew the name of the Orion project. "I can call your clients," she said, her voice dropping to a murmur that made my skin crawl. "I can find the people giving you that money, and I can tell them exactly what kind of person you are. I can tell them about your instability. I can tell them you are a risk." "That is illegal," I said. "That is defamation." "Only if you can prove it." She smiled. It was a terrifying, dead smile. "And by the time you prove it, the contracts will be gone. Who wants to do business with a woman whose own mother says she is dangerous?" She patted my cheek. It was a mock gesture of affection. "Family comes first, Avery," she said. "Remember that." She turned and walked out the door. I slammed it shut. I locked the deadbolt. I locked the chain. I slid down against the wood until I hit the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break my ribs. She wasn't stopping. She was escalating. Calling HR was an attack on my employment. Calling the clients was an attack on my entire industry existence. If she started calling stakeholders people at partner firms, vendors, Major accounts she could blacklist me not just from Bright Pine, but from the entire tech sector in Charlotte. I looked at my phone. The recording app was running. I had caught the threat, but a recording wouldn't stop her from making the calls. I needed to stop her before she picked up the phone. I stood up. I wasn't going to hide. I walked back to my computer. I opened a new email to my lawyer, the one I had found on Google yesterday, and paid a retainer to this morning. Subject urgent. Threat of imminent tortious interference with clients. She just left my apartment. She explicitly threatened to contact my client list to spread defamatory statements regarding my mental health. I need an emergency injunction. Now. I hit send. Then I pulled up my credit report again. If she was going to war with my money, I was going to find out exactly why she needed me to be her free labor so badly. People don't try to enslave their children unless they are desperate. I looked at the inquiries section of my credit report. There was a new one. Dated 3 days ago. Lender quick cash title loans. My breath hitched. Title loans. My parents owned their house outright. My dad had a pension. Why would they need a predatory title loan? Unless the house wasn't paid off anymore. I started digging. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was hunting. The silence in my apartment after my family left was not peaceful. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a crime scene after the police had gone. I sat on the floor for a long time, staring at the door where my mother had stood, where she had threatened to burn down my professional reputation with a few phone calls. She had called me unstable. She had called me selfish. But the thing that echoed loudest in my head was her confidence. I can find the people giving you that money. Why was she so obsessed with my money? I dragged myself back to the desk. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold, clinical need to dissect the anatomy of this abuse. I opened a new spreadsheet. I named it the family tax. I started going back through 3 years of bank statements. I had always told myself I was just helping out. I was the successful aunt, the one with the 6-figure salary and no dependents. It was my duty to smooth out the rough edges of Tessa's life, but I had never actually looked at the sum total. I started typing. November 14th, $300. Groceries for Tessa. December 2nd, $450. Christmas gifts for the boys. Because Mike was short, January 10th, $200. Speech therapy company for Connor, March 4th, $800. New tires for Mom's car. The rows filled up. It was a hemorrhage, a slow, steady bleed of resources that I had justified as love. Then I saw the Venmo transactions, dozens of them. For pizza. For gas. Emergency. Boys need shoes. I summed the column. $24,350 over the last 3 years. I have given my family nearly $25,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a master's degree. That was a safety net. And what did I have to show for it? A mother who called my boss to get me fired, and a sister who tried to abandon her children in my hallway. But as I scrolled through the transaction history of my primary checking account, something caught my eye. A recurring payment of $55 to HomeLux Credit Services. I frowned. I didn't shop at HomeLux. It was a high-end bedding and furniture store in the mall near my mother's house. I bought my sheets online. I clicked on the transaction details. It was an auto-pay setup. My heart began to beat a little faster. I logged into my credit report portal, the full version. Not just the summary I had glanced at earlier. I pulled the detailed trade lines for Experian. There it was. HomeLux store card. Opened October 12th of last year. Credit limit $5,000. Balance $4,890. Status current minimum payments only. I stopped breathing. I did not open that card. I looked at the address on file for the account. 12 Oak Lane, Pine Creek, my mother's address. I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. This wasn't just bullying. This wasn't just toxic parenting. This was a felony. My mother had used my social security number, which she had access to from my old tax returns stored in her attic, to open a credit card in my name. She had maxed it out on, new curtains, a new mattress. And she had set up an auto-pay from my checking account for the minimum amount so I wouldn't notice the late fees. She was stealing from me. She was stealing nearly $5,000. And she was doing it $55 at a time so she wouldn't trigger a fraud alert. I kept digging. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely control the mouse. I looked at the inquiries section again, the one I had seen earlier from Quick Cash Title Loans. I clicked for details. Application date 2 days ago. Applicant name, Avery Caldwell. Co-applicant Diane Caldwell. She hadn't just tried to get a loan for herself. She had tried to put my name on a title loan for a car I didn't own. Or perhaps she was trying to refinance her own car using my credit score to get a better rate. The application status said, pending, verification required. That was why she needed me at the house. The realization hit me like a physical slap. Babysitting, the Tessa needs a break story. The family comes first guilt trip. It was all a smokescreen. If I was at her house watching the boys, she could intercept the verification call from the lender, or maybe she needed me to sign something in person, slipped in between a stack of permission slips for the kids, or maybe she just needed me physically present to bully me into agreeing to help mom out with a small loan. She didn't call my boss to free up my schedule for childcare. She called my boss to create a crisis so I would come home, where she could use me to fix her financial mess. I grabbed my phone. I needed to nail this down. I needed her to admit it, on the record, before I pulled the trigger that would blow up our entire family legal status. I took a screenshot of the HomeLux credit card entry. I sent it to her. Me mom. What is this? I waited. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. She was probably sitting in her car. Or maybe she was still driving home, fuming. Mom, it is just for the guest room, for when you come to visit. The old mattress was hurting your back. I stared at the screen, mouth agape. The gaslighting was Olympic level. She stole my identity to buy furniture, and she was framing it as an act of hospitality for me. Me. You opened a credit card in my name without my permission. You maxed it out. That is $5,000. Mom, and you set up auto pay from my account. Mom, don't be so dramatic. We are a family. What is yours is ours. I knew you would want to help, but you have been so distant lately. I just handled it. I am paying the minimums. Aren't I? It builds your credit. It builds your credit. She actually believed she was doing me a favor, or rather, she had convinced herself of that lie so thoroughly that she couldn't see the crime. Me. It is identity theft, and I see the application for Quick Cash too. Did you try to take out a loan in my name 2 days ago? Mom-Dad's pension got cut. We needed a bridge. You make so much money. Avery, you don't even miss it. Why are you being so greedy? We fed you for 18 years. You can't help us with a bridge loan. There it was. The confession. You don't even miss it. She felt entitled to my income. In her mind, my success was a family asset, a communal pot that she could dip into whenever she felt the need. My boundaries were just obstacles to her rightful access. I didn't reply. I had the screenshot. I had the admission. I switched apps. I went to the Federal Trade Commission's identity theft portal. I filled out the affidavit. Victim Avery Caldwell. Perpetrator Diane Caldwell. Relationship mother. Clicking submit felt like cutting off my own arm. It was a permanent serving. Once this was in the system, there was no talking it out. There was no Thanksgiving dinner. There was only the law. I hit the button. Next, I went to the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I initiated a total credit freeze. I set a PIN that was a random string of numbers, nothing related to birthdays or anniversaries. I locked my financial identity inside a vault that Diane Caldwell could never open. Then I called the bank. I need to report unauthorized activity, I told the representative, and I need to close my checking account and open a new one with a new account number, immediately. Has your card been stolen, ma'am? No, I said, my voice flat. My mother has my account number. And she is using it. By the time I hung up, it was 2 p.m. My old life was effectively dead. My bank accounts were closed, my credit was frozen, and I had filed a federal fraud report against the woman who gave birth to me, but I wasn't done. I had to protect the other flank, Bright Pine. If she was desperate for money, desperate enough to try a title loan and steal my identity, Then her threat to call my clients wasn't just rage, it was leverage. She might try to extort me. Give me the money, or I call the client. I drafted an email to the Bright Pine legal team, CCing Marcus and Linda. Subject, security update, high risk of external data breach and client harassment. Urgent update. I have uncovered evidence that the third party Diane Caldwell has committed financial identity theft against me, indicating severe financial distress. This escalates the risk profile. She has explicitly threatened to contact Bright Pine clients to defame me and the company if her demands are not met. Please be advised that she may have obtained client contact information through social engineering or by accessing my old physical records. I recommend alerting the account managers for the Orion project to flag any external communications from unauthorized sources. I sent it. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. I felt hollowed out. I wondered if I had gone too far. Maybe I should have just paid off the card and closed it. Maybe I should have just eaten the $5,000. But then I remembered the text. You don't even miss it. It wouldn't have stopped at $5,000. It would have been 10. Then a co-signed mortgage. Then my retirement fund. She would have eaten me alive until there was nothing left but a husk, and she would have called it love. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. A Washington, D.C. area code. I picked it up. This is Avery. Ms. Caldwell. This is Jonathan Eames. I am the Deputy General Counsel for Bright Pine. Yes, Mr. Eames, did you get my email? We did, he said. His voice was grim. And unfortunately, your warning came about an hour too late. My stomach dropped through the floor. What do you mean? We just received a flag from the sales director, Eames said. Do you know Mr. Sterling? At Apex Logistics. Apex Logistics. They were the anchor client for the Orion project, a $10 million contract. Mr. Sterling was the CTO. I had shaken his hand twice. Yes, I whispered. I know him. Mr. Sterling's executive assistant just forwarded a voicemail to us, Eames said. It was left on Mr. Sterling's private office line at 11:30 this morning. 11:30, right after she left my apartment, right after she threatened me. The voicemail, Eames continued, his voice devoid of emotion, was from a woman identifying herself as your mother. She stated that she felt a moral obligation to warn Apex Logistics that the project lead, Avery Caldwell, was currently under investigation for embezzlement and narcotics abuse, and that Bright Pine was covering it up. I closed my eyes. The room spun. She had done it. She had actually done it. She hadn't just threatened me to my face. She had gone to the car and executed the threat immediately. She found him on LinkedIn, I said, my voice trembling. She must have looked at my connections. She saw who I interacted with. It appears so, Eames said. Mr. Sterling is concerned. He is asking why a family member of the project lead has his direct line and why she is making allegations of embezzlement. It is a lie, I choked out. All of it. You know it is a lie. You have my audit. We know, Eames said, but the damage to the client relationship is real. Avery, this looks messy. It looks like we have lost control of our personnel security. I filed a fraud report, I said quickly. I can send it to you. She is a criminal. She stole my identity. This is the act of a desperate person trying to extort me. Send us the report, Eames said. Immediately. We are going to need to draft a cease and desist that is much stronger than the one we planned. And Avery, yes. We are going to need you to come in tomorrow, not to work, but to meet with our external counsel. If we are going to save this contract, we have to prove to Apex that we are the victims here, not the perpetrators. We have to throw her under the bus. Completely. Do it, I said. She isn't my mother anymore. She is a liability. Good, Eames said. We will see you at 9. He hung up. I sat there, the phone warm in my hand. She had nuked the bridge. She had tried to kill the contract that put food on my table. She had tried to humiliate me in front of the most powerful man in my industry. And for what? Because I wouldn't pay for her curtains. Because I wouldn't watch her grandkids on a Tuesday, no. Because I said no. I looked at the spreadsheet again. The family tax. I highlighted the total sum $24,350. I highlighted the credit card debt $4,890. And then I added a new line at the bottom. Cost of reputation damage incalculable. I saved the file. I attached it to the email to Eames. Then I walked to my front door and checked the locks again. I wasn't afraid of her coming back to yell anymore. I was afraid of what a person with nothing left to lose would do when she realized her victim had just become her executioner. She wanted a war about money. She was about to find out that I could count better than she could, and I was done paying the bill. The courier arrived at my mother's house at 10:14 in the morning on Wednesday. I knew this because Jonathan Eames, the Deputy General Counsel for Bright Pine Solutions, had CC'd me on the tracking notification. It was not a friendly letter. It was a formal cease and desist order, drafted on the heaviest cardstock the legal department possessed, embossed with the company seal. It did not ask her to stop. It commanded her, under threat of immediate civil litigation, to cease all communication with Bright Pine employees, officers, and most critically clients. It cited the exact statutes regarding tortious interference with contractual relations and defamation of character. I sat in Eames's office while the delivery confirmation pinged on his computer screen. The office was cold, smelling of lemon polish and expensive leather. "It is done," Eames said, not looking up from his monitor. "The courier states that the package was signed for by Tessa Halston, your sister." "Yes," I said. "She is staying there." "Good," Eames said. "Then service is perfected. Now, let's talk about your status." He slid a file across the mahogany desk toward me. It was thick. Inside was the compilation of every scrap of evidence I had gathered over the last 48 hours. The recording of the voicemail she left for Mr. Sterling at Apex Logistics, the screenshot of the "family comes first" text sent 1 minute after my suspension, the video Greg from across the hall had taken of her screaming in my hallway, the log of the unauthorized access to my personal email from her IP address. It was a dossier of harassment. It was the story of a mother who had tried to surgically remove her daughter's independence. "HR has reviewed this," Eames said. "Along with the police report you filed regarding the identity theft and the credit card fraud. The conclusion is unanimous. You are not a security risk. Avery, you are the victim of a targeted campaign of malicious intent by an external actor." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since Monday morning. "So, I am cleared." "You are fully reinstated, effective immediately," Eames said. "Your access badges have been reactivated. Your digital credentials will be restored by noon. Linda from HR is drafting a formal apology for the suspension, which will be placed in your personnel file to negate any record of disciplinary action." "And Mr. Sterling?" I asked. "The client?" "I spoke to him personally," Eames said. "I explained that we are dealing with a criminal matter involving identity theft and family harassment. We framed it carefully. You are not unstable. You are a victim of a crime who is cooperating with authorities. Mr. Sterling was sympathetic. He has a difficult ex-wife. He understands crazy things." I nodded. It was a spin, but it was a spin that saved my career. "Thank you, Jonathan," I said. "Don't thank me," he said, his eyes hard. "Just keep her away from us. If she contacts a client again, we won't just send a letter. We will sue her for damages. And that is not a threat. That is a promise." "She won't," I said. "I won't let her." I walked out of the legal office and down the hall to my desk. It was strange. The office looked exactly the same as it had on Monday. The coffee machine was still gurgling. The hum of the servers was the same. But I felt like a ghost returning to a life I had already mourned. I sat down. My monitors flickered to life. The blue light washed over my face. "Welcome back." "Avery." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt heavy. I had won the battle for my job. But I knew the war at home was about to detonate. It took exactly 45 minutes for the explosion to reach me. My phone buzzed. It was Aunt Karen. "Karen, I just got off the phone with your mother. She is hysterical. She says you sent a lawyer to the house, Avery." "She is your mother." You are treating her like a criminal. You are going to give her a heart attack. I looked at the text. The guilt reflex twitched that old, ingrained instinct to fix, to soothe, to apologize. But then I remembered the spreadsheet. I remembered the credit card bill. I remembered the voicemail to Mr. Sterling. I typed back, me. She committed a crime. Aunt Karen. She tried to get me fired. She stole my identity. I didn't treat her like a criminal. She acted like one. If she is upset about the consequences, she should have thought about that before she tried to destroy my life. I blocked Karen. I didn't have the bandwidth for flying monkeys. Then Tessa called. I hesitated, but I needed to know if the message had landed. I picked it up. Did you read it? I asked. I read it, Tessa said. Her voice sounded thin, like stretched wire. Mom is... Avery. She is losing it. She threw a vase. She is screaming that you are ungrateful, that you are trying to humiliate her. I am protecting myself, I said. There is a difference. She said she called your client. Tessa whispered. She actually did it. I thought she was just bluffing. She did it, I said. She left a voicemail accusing me of embezzlement. She tried to get the Orion contract canceled. Tessa, do you understand what that means? If I lose that contract, I don't just lose my job, I lost my career. I could be blacklisted. There was a long silence on the other end. I didn't know, Tessa said. I knew she was mad. I knew she wanted you to come home, but I didn't think she would actually try to burn it all down. She doesn't care if I burn, I said. As long as I burn in her fireplace. She is blaming me, Tessa said, her voice cracking. She is saying if I wasn't so weak, if I could handle my own kids, she wouldn't have had to do this. She is saying it is my fault for needing help. It is not your fault, I said firmly. But Tessa, you have to stop letting her use the boys as ammunition. She doesn't want to help you. She wants to use your struggle to control me. I know, Tessa sobbed. I know. I packed a bag. Mike is coming to get us. We are going to stay at his mom's for a few days. I can't be in this house with her right now. Good, I said. Get out. Protect the boys. But Avery, what are you going to do? Tessa asked. She isn't going to stop. She's already talking about going to your apartment building. She says she has a right to see you. She has no rights, I said. Not anymore. I hung up. I sat there, looking at my restored calendar. I had a choice. I could leave it at the cease and desist. I could hope the fear of a lawsuit was enough to keep her at bay. But Diane Caldwell was not a woman who respected paper. She respected power. And right now, she felt powerless, which made her dangerous. I decided to make one last, good faith effort, not for her, but for the record. I wanted to be able to stand before a judge and say, I tried everything. I opened my email. I drafted a message to my mother. Subject terms of engagement. Mom, I am writing this to offer a final path forward. I understand you feel Tessa needs help with the children. I am willing to contribute to that solution, but only on professional terms. Here is my offer. 1. I will pay for a professional nanny service for Tessa for 2 days a week for the next 3 months. I will pay the agency directly. 2. I will not be physically present for babysitting. My work schedule does not permit it. 3. You will cease all contact with my employer, my clients, and my financial institutions immediately. 4. You will agree to a payment plan for the $4,800 you charge to the HomeLux card in my name. This is not a negotiation. This is an olive branch. If you reject this, my next step will be purely legal. Avery, I sent it. It was a generous offer. I was willing to pay out of pocket to solve the problem she claimed was the root cause of all this. If she really cared about Tessa, if she really cared about the family, she would take it. The response came 12 minutes later. It was not an email. It was a text. Mom, you think you can buy me off. You think you can throw money at a stranger to raise your own blood. You are colder than I thought. I don't want your money. Avery, I want my daughter. I want you to remember your place. And as for that credit card, Consider it back pay for 18 years of raising you. I am not paying you a dime. You owe me. I stared at the screen. You owe me. There it was, the core of the rot. She didn't want a solution. She didn't want help for Tessa. She wanted submission. She wanted me to bend the knee. She would rather have Tessa struggle and the boys suffer than accept help that didn't involve me sacrificing my autonomy. And the credit card, she had just admitted, in writing, that she had no intention of paying it back. She viewed theft as her maternal right. I took a screenshot of the text. I added it to the dossier. I was about to close my phone when another message popped up. It was from Cousin Beth. Beth was the family gossip, the neutral Switzerland who transmitted information between the warring factions of the Caldwell clan. Beth Avery. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I am worried. I am over at your mom's helping her with the computer. She is on the phone with someone. I think it is a lawyer, or maybe a friend. She is bragging. Me. Bragging about what, Beth? She is saying she has you cornered. She says the lawyer letter from your work is just a bluff. She says she knows you are on the verge of cracking. She told this person, I am going to keep squeezing. She will be back in her old bedroom by next week. I just have to cut off her supply. Me. What supply, Beth? She asked me if I knew where you did your banking now. I told her I didn't know. But Avery, she has your old journals on the table. She is looking for answers to security questions. My blood ran cold. She wasn't stopping. The cease and desist hadn't scared her. It had emboldened her. She interpreted my defensive measures as signs of weakness. She thought I was cracking, and she was actively hunting for my new financial information. She was digging through my teenage diaries, looking for the name of my first pet, the street I grew up on, anything to unlock the vaults I had just sealed. She was not a mother. She was a terminator. I stood up. I walked to the window of my office. I looked down at the parking lot where, just 2 days ago, I had sat in my car and decided to fight. I had tried to be reasonable. I had tried to be professional. I had tried to keep it in the family. But you cannot negotiate with a parasite. You can only remove it. I walked back to my desk. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for the family court clerk, which my retained lawyer had given me, just in case. This is Avery Caldwell, I said when the clerk answered. I need to file for an emergency ex parte temporary restraining order. Against whom, Ms. Caldwell? Against Diane Caldwell, I said. My mother. And on what grounds? Stalking. I listened, my voice steady and flat. Identity theft, financial fraud, workplace harassment, and credible threats of extortion. Do you have evidence? I have everything, I said. I have logs, recordings, affidavits from my employer, and a police report number for the fraud. I can be there in 20 minutes. Come down, the clerk said. The judge is in session until 4. I hung up. I gathered my things. I printed the email exchange. I printed the text from Beth. I printed the text from Mom refusing to pay the debt. I walked past Marcus's office on my way out. Heading out, he asked. Looking up, he looked relieved to see me back, but also wary. I have an appointment, I said. Everything okay? It will be, I said. I am going to get a lock. A lock. A legal one, I said. I'll be back in the morning. Marcus? And I promise you, this is the last time Diane Caldwell will disrupt this office. I walked to the elevator. Filing a restraining order against your mother is not something you put on a vision board. It is the nuclear option. It says to the world that the person who gave you life is a danger to your existence. But as I stepped out into the afternoon heat, I didn't feel sad. I felt a strange, vibrating clarity. She wanted me home. She wanted to drag me back to Pine Creek. She was going to get a court order that said if she came within 500 feet of me, she would go to jail. Family comes first. I repeated the phrase in my head. Family comes first. Yes, and I was my own family now. I was in a family of one, and I was going to protect this family with the full force of the state of North Carolina. I got in my car and drove toward the courthouse. The hallway of the Mecklenburg County Courthouse smelled like floor wax, stale coffee, and the specific, damp anxiety of people whose lives are being dismantled by paperwork. It was Thursday morning. The judge had ordered a preliminary mediation session before ruling on the full temporary restraining order. It was a standard procedure, a final attempt by the state to see if blood relatives could resolve their differences without a gavel. I arrived 15 minutes early. I was wearing my charcoal suit, the one I usually reserved for board meetings with investors. I carried a black leather binder. Inside was the dossier, the transcripts, the financial audits, the police report number for the identity theft, and the affidavit from Bright Pine's legal department. I sat on a wooden bench, staring at the beige wall. I was calm. It was the unnatural, chemical calmness of a soldier who has accepted that the battle is inevitable. Then the elevator doors dinged. My mother stepped out. She was not wearing the aggressive floral blouse she had worn to my apartment. She was wearing a soft, pale blue cardigan and a skirt that fell below her knees. She wore no makeup. She looked smaller, frailer. She was dressed as the victim. She was dressed as the sweet, confused grandmother who just wanted to bake cookies and love her family. Tessa walked behind her. My sister looked like a ghost. Her eyes were swollen, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the floor, clutching her purse like a shield. They sat on the bench opposite mine. The hallway was narrow, maybe 6 feet wide. The air between us felt thick enough to choke on. For 2 minutes, no one spoke. The silence was loud. It hummed with 30 years of history. Then, my mother sighed. It was a long, trembling sound, designed to pull sympathy from the very drywall. "Look at this," she said softly, speaking to the air, but looking at the bailiff standing by the door. A mother and 2 daughters, sitting in a court hallway like criminals, all because one of them forgot where she came from. I did not look up from my binder. I turned a page. "I am just a grandmother," she continued, her voice gaining a little strength. "I spend my days worrying about my grandbabies, about my girls, and this is the thanks I get, a restraining order because I wanted to see my daughter." She turned her eyes toward me. They were wet with tears. It was a masterful performance. "The city ruined you, Avery," she said. "I told your father, God rest his soul, I told him when you took that job, I said, Charlotte will eat her heart. And look, it did. You care more about paper and laws than you do about your own flesh." I closed the binder. The snap of the rings was sharp in the quiet hallway. I looked at her. I did not see a monster. I did not see a demon. I saw a sad, desperate woman who believed that love was a synonym for control. "This is not about the city, Mom," I said. My voice was level. "And it is not about my heart. It is about your pride," she shot back, the mask slipping just an inch. "You are embarrassed. You are embarrassed of us because we are not fancy, because we don't have stock options. I am not embarrassed," I said. "I am exhausted." I opened the binder again. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a summary timeline. Monday, 9:07 in the morning. I read, "You called the whistleblower hotline at my company. You accused me of time theft and substance abuse. I was worried," she interrupted. "You sounded manic." Monday, 9:10 in the morning. I continued, ignoring her. 3 minutes later, you texted me demanding I babysit because now I had free time. You did not ask if I was okay. You did not offer help. You tried to deploy me as labor. Tessa needed help. Mom gestured to my sister. "Look at her." Tuesday, 11:30 in the morning, I went on. "You called Mr. Sterling at Apex Logistics. You left a voicemail accusing me of embezzlement. You attempted to destroy a $10 million contract." "I didn't know it was that much money," she muttered. "It doesn't matter if it was $10 or $10 million, I said. "You tried to sever my income, and then, Wednesday, the credit card. You admitted in a text message that you opened a card in my name, spent nearly $5,000, and have no intention of paying it back." I held up the paper. "This is not love, Mom," I said. "This is a tactical demolition of my life. You are not a concerned grandmother. You are an arsonist." My mother's face hardened. The frail old lady act evaporated. She sat up straighter, her eyes narrowing into the slits I knew so well from my childhood, the look that meant I was in trouble. "And what if I did?" she hissed. "What if I did call them, 'You have too much, Avery. You have too much money. You have too much freedom. You sit in that apartment with your expensive furniture while your sister clips coupons to buy diapers. It is not right. It is my job," I said. "I worked for it." "You got lucky," she spat. "You think you are better than us. You think because you can write code and talk to fancy clients that you are special. You are nothing without this family. We made you. We sacrificed for you. And now you hoard it all for yourself. You are supposed to share. That is what family does." "Sharing is voluntary," I said. "Stealing my identity is a felony." "Who told you that you could be up here?" She raised her hand, leveling it above her head, then lowered it to her waist. "And leave us down here. You are supposed to lift us up. But you just climbed the ladder and pulled it up behind you." "I offered to pay for a nanny," I said. "Yesterday, I offered to pay for help for Tessa. You refused. You said you didn't want my money. You wanted me." "Because money isn't the point," she shouted. The bailiff looked over, his hand resting on his belt. She lowered her voice, trembling with rage. "The point is that you think you can say no to me. The point is that you think you have the right to lock your door against your mother." I looked at Tessa. My sister was staring at Mom. Her mouth was slightly open, as if she was seeing something for the first time. "Mom," Tessa whispered. "She offered a nanny." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "It was an insult. Tessa, she wanted to send a stranger to your house. She thinks she can just throw cash at us to make us go away." "But," Tessa's voice shook, "but a nanny would have helped. I could have gone back to work part-time. I could have slept." "We don't need strangers raising your sons," Mom snapped. "We need Avery. She is my aunt. It is her duty." "No," Tessa said. It was a quiet word, but it hung in the air. "No, that is not it." Tessa looked at me. There were tears running down her cheeks, but they weren't the tears of a victim anymore. They were the tears of someone waking up from a long, bad dream. "You don't want her to help me," Tessa said to Mom. "You want her to fail. You want her to lose that job so she has to come back to Pine Creek. You want her to be stuck, just like me." "I am trying to keep this family together," Mom said. "You are trying to keep us level," Tessa said. "You hate that she got out. You hate that she doesn't need you." "Shut up, Tessa," Mom hissed. "You are weak. You always have been. That is why you need me." Tessa flinched as if she had been slapped. I felt a cold fire in my chest. I leaned forward. "Listen to me," I said. "Both of you." I looked my mother in the eye. "I am going to offer you one last thing. Not money, not a nanny. A choice." My mother crossed her arms. "I don't need your choices. If you want a relationship with me," I said, "if you ever want to step foot in my apartment again, or receive a call from me on Christmas, here are the terms. 1. You will sign a formal admission of the credit fraud and agree to a payment plan. 2. You will never, ever contact my employer or my clients again. 3. You will apologize, not a fake apology. You will apologize for trying to destroy my livelihood. And if I don't," she challenged me, "then I walk into that courtroom," I said, pointing to the double doors, "and I ask the judge for the maximum duration on the restraining order, and I press charges for the identity theft. I will put you in prison. Mom, I have the evidence to do it." She looked at me. She searched my face for a crack, for a sign of the little girl who used to cry when she yelled. She found nothing. She laughed. It was a bitter, dry sound. "Apologize," she said. "You want me to apologize for trying to save you from yourself, for trying to bring you back to the fold?" She leaned in, her face inches from mine. "I gave you life, Avery. I wiped your nose. I paid for your braces. I am your mother, and I will not apologize for being a mother. I will not apologize for doing what had to be done to keep my children close. Even if it destroys them, I asked. Better destroyed and together, she said, than successful and alone. There it was, the manifesto. The sickness laid bare on the table. She would rather break my legs than watch me walk away. I sat back. I felt a strange sense of peace. It was over. The hope, the tiny, irrational hope that she might understand was dead, and with it died the guilt. Okay, I said. Thank you for clarifying. I stood up. I smoothed my skirt. Tessa reached out and grabbed my hand. Her grip was tight, desperate. Avery, she whispered. I'm sorry. I looked down at her. I knew, Tessa choked out. I knew she was crazy. I knew she was calling your job. And I let her. I let her do it because, God, Avery, I was just so tired. I haven't slept through the night in 6 years. And when she said she could get you to come help, I just wanted to sleep. I threw you under the bus because I wanted to sleep. I know, I said softly. I am so sorry. Tessa wept. I am so jealous of you. I am jealous of your life. And she used that. She used my jealousy. She used us both, I said. But Tessa, you have a choice too. You can get in the car with her after this, or you can call Mike. Mike is parking the car, Tessa said. She wiped her eyes. She looked at Mom, who was staring at the wall, refusing to acknowledge the betrayal. I think we're going to go to his mom's house tonight. Good, I said. The heavy wooden doors of the courtroom opened. The bailiff stepped out. Caldwell versus Caldwell, he announced. All parties, please come in. My mother stood up. She smoothed her cardigan. She lifted her chin. She prepared her face, composing it back into the mask of the suffering matriarch. She was ready to perform for the judge. She was ready to cry and talk about family values. But I knew something she didn't. I knew that the judge wasn't an audience. The judge was a lawyer. And lawyers don't care about tears. They care about receipts. I picked up my black binder. It felt heavy, like a weapon. I looked at my mother one last time. She was walking ahead of me, confident in her delusion, believing that the universe owed her my obedience. I realized then that I wasn't walking into that room to get revenge. Revenge is hot. Revenge is messy. This was something else. This was a foreclosure. I was evicting her from my life. I stepped through the doors, into the cool air of the courtroom. For the first time in 31 years, I left my mother behind. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. It was not the grand, mahogany-paneled theater you see on television. It was a functional room with fluorescent lighting and the smell of industrial cleaner. But as the recording of my mother's voice played over the speaker system, the room felt cavernous, every syllable echoing off the walls like a physical slap. This is a warning regarding Avery Caldwell. She is unstable. She is stealing from your company to fund a substance habit. I am her mother. I know. You need to cut ties before she embarrasses you. The voice on the recording was smooth. It was concerning. It was the voice of a martyr protecting the innocent. But in the sterile air of the courtroom, stripped of the context of a worried mom, it sounded exactly like what it was, a calculated assassination of character. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded on top of my black binder. I did not look at my mother. I looked at Judge Harrison. He was a man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and a face that suggested he had seen every variation of human pettiness the county had to offer. He listened to the voicemail. He listened to the second one, the one left for the client at Apex Logistics. She is under investigation for embezzlement. I thought you should know. Judge Harrison pressed a button, and the room went silent. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Ms. Caldwell, the judge said, looking at my mother. You admit that this is your voice. My mother stood up. She was trembling, but I knew her well enough to know it was only a partial performance. She clasped her hands in front of her chest. Your Honor, she said, her voice wavering. I was desperate. A mother knows when her child is in trouble. Avery has been distant. She has been spending money recklessly. She refused to help her sister who is struggling. I truly believed she was having a breakdown. I made those calls to force her to stop, to save her. It was the same narrative she had spun in the hallway, the tough love defense. The judge looked down at the file in front of him. He picked up the affidavit provided by the Bright Pine Legal Department. I have a sworn statement here from the general counsel of the plaintiff's employer, Judge Harrison said. It states that an internal audit found zero evidence of time theft, embezzlement, or substance abuse. It characterizes your calls not as a wellness check, but as, quote, malicious interference with a high-value contract, unquote. He looked at my mother over the rim of his glasses. And then there is the matter of the text message, he said. He held up the screenshot I had provided, the one from Monday morning. 9:10 in the morning, the judge read. 1 minute after the plaintiff was suspended from her job, you wrote, "Now you have some free time. Come over and watch the 3 boys. Family comes first." The judge let the words hang in the air. "Mrs. Caldwell," the judge said, his voice sharpening. "Did you call her employer to save her from a mental breakdown, or did you call her employer to render her unemployed so she would be available to babysit your grandchildren?" My mother flinched. She looked at her lawyer, a court-appointed mediator who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I wanted her to come home," my mother stammered. "She belongs at home. She was getting too big for her britches. The job was making her cold." "So you admit it," the judge said. "You intentionally sabotaged her employment because you disagreed with her lifestyle choices." "I have a right to parent my child," my mother snapped, her control slipping. "I have a right to protect this family. She was abandoning us." "She is 31 years old," the judge cut in. His voice was no longer bored, it was steel. "She is not a child. She is an adult citizen with a right to earn a living without interference. You do not have the right to burn down her career because you want her to drive a carpool." My mother opened her mouth to argue, to play the blood is thicker than water card again, but the judge raised his hand. "Stop," he commanded. "This court is not a therapy session. We deal in facts, and the facts here are ugly. You committed identity theft to open a credit card. You impersonated a whistleblower. You contacted a client of her firm with defamatory statements. These are not the actions of a concerned mother. These are the actions of a person trying to destroy a livelihood." He turned to me. "Ms. Avery Caldwell," he said, "what is your request?" I stood up. I felt steady. The shaking that had plagued me all week was gone. "Your Honor," I said clearly, "I am not asking the court to sever my family ties. I cannot legislate their feelings, but I am asking for safety. I am asking for the right to go to work without fear that my mother is calling my boss. I am asking for the right to have a bank account that she cannot access. I am asking for a permanent injunction preventing her from contacting Bright Pine Solutions, its employees, or its clients, and I am asking that she be restricted from coming within 500 feet of my residence or my place of employment." "Granted," the judge said immediately. My mother gasped. It was a sharp, wet sound. "And regarding the financial fraud," the judge continued, "I am referring the evidence of the HomeLux credit card and the quick cash application to the district attorney's office for review. In the meantime, Mrs. Caldwell, you are ordered to cease all use of the plaintiff's identity immediately. You are to have no contact with her except through legal counsel. If you violate this order, if you send one text, if you make one phone call to her office, you will be held in contempt and you will go to jail." "Do you understand me?" "But she is my daughter," my mother whispered. She looked at me, her eyes wide with genuine shock. For the first time, she was realizing that the rules of her kitchen did not apply in a court of law. "You can't do this. Avery, tell him family comes first." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had raised me, the woman who had taught me to tie my shoes and then tried to tie my hands. "I can't help you, Mom," I said softly. "You did this." The gavel banged. "Court is adjourned." The sound of the gavel was final. It was the punctuation mark at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. My mother slumped onto the bench. She looked old. She looked defeated. She looked like a general whose army had deserted her. Tessa, who had been sitting in the back row, stood up and walked out without looking at her. Mike was waiting in the car. Tessa had chosen her side. I gathered my binder. I walked past my mother. I didn't stop gloating. I didn't stop to explain. There was nothing left to say. She was trapped in a prison of her own making, a prison built of entitlement and control. I was walking out into the free world. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright, hot sun of the North Carolina afternoon. I took a deep breath. The air tasted different. It tasted like oxygen, not obligation. I didn't go home. I got in my car and drove straight to Bright Pine Solutions. My badge worked on the first try. The little light on the turnstile turned green, a cheerful, electronic welcome. Beep, access granted. I walked to the elevator. I rode it to the 3rd floor. When the doors opened, the office hummed with the same energy it always had. People were typing. Phones were ringing. I walked to my desk. My monitors were dark. I touched the mouse, and they sprang to life, glowing with the familiar interface of my code editor and my email. Avery. I turned around. Marcus was standing there. He was holding a coffee mug. He looked tired, but when he saw me, his face broke into a genuine smile. "You are back," he said. "I am back," I said. "The court order is filed. Legal has a copy. She won't bother us again." Marcus nodded. He walked over and sat on the edge of my desk. "I spoke to Sterling at Apex," Marcus said. "We smoothed it over. He was actually pretty understanding once we explained the identity theft aspect. He said as long as the project delivers, he doesn't care about the drama." "I will deliver," I said. "You know I will." "I know," Marcus said. He paused, looking at me carefully. "Listen, Avery, I am sorry about Monday. We had to follow protocol. But we know who does the work around here. We know who built the Orion architecture. We don't judge you by the noise of other people. We don't judge you by the noise of other people." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "Thank you, Marcus," I said. "Now, if you don't mind, I have 3 days of commits to catch up on." "Get to it," he said. Tapping my desk, he walked away. I put on my headphones. I played my Focus playlist. I typed the first line of code. The rhythm of the keys was soothing. It was a language that made sense. Logic, syntax, input and output. No manipulation, no guilt. I worked until 7 o'clock. When I finally packed up to leave, the office was mostly empty. I walked out to the parking lot, the summer twilight turning the sky a deep, bruised purple. I sat in my car. I pulled out my phone. There were no new messages, no guilt trips from Aunt Karen, no demands from Mom. The cease and desist and the restraining order had created a silence that was profound and beautiful, but there was one old message still sitting in my inbox history. I scrolled down. I found it. The text from Monday morning. "Now you have some free time. Come over and watch the 3 boys. Family comes first." I looked at those 3 words. Family comes first. For 31 years. I had thought that phrase was a command. I thought it meant that I had to put myself second, third, or last. I thought it meant that my value was determined by how much I could sacrifice for the people who shared my DNA. But as I sat there, employed, safe, and free, I realized I had been reading it wrong. Family does come first, but I was my own family now. My sanity came first. My safety came first. My future came first. And the people who truly loved me, the people who deserved to be called family, were the ones who would celebrate that, not try to destroy it. I swiped left on the message. Delete. "Are you sure you want to delete this conversation?" I tapped yes. The message vanished. I put the phone in the cup holder. I started the engine. I backed out of the parking space and turned toward my apartment. I was going home to a quiet room, a paid-for sofa, and a life that belonged entirely to me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel lonely. It felt like victory. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening while driving to work, cooking dinner, or maybe hiding in the bathroom from your own crazy family? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed seeing Avery take her power back, please make sure to subscribe to the Veronica Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button so we can get this story out to more people who might need a reminder that they are allowed to say no.